welcome to Discovering Justice. My name is Lucy Rivera, and I am your host. To visit the content of this program and our prior programs, please visit our page, www.discoveringjustice.net. Today, we have a very special guest. We have District Attorney Gerry Leone. He is the District Attorney of Middlesex County. He became District Attorney in 2007, and he began his second term in November. Welcome to our program, D.A. Leone.
Thanks for having me, Lucy.
Pleasure to have you.
Same here.
D.A. Leone, let's begin with what was your experience before you became Middlesex County District Attorney?
Well, I was a prosecutor. I've been a prosecutor most of my career. And like you and I were talking about before the cameras started rolling, I started my career in this area, in the Dudley Square area. I was a law student going to school nights at Suffolk, and I was prosecuting cases in the Roxbury area until I went to Middlesex County. I then prosecuted cases there throughout the 90s as an assistant district attorney. I then went stateside, and I went to the Attorney General's office. And so I had statewide jurisdiction as the chief of the criminal bureau there. Then shortly after September 11th, I went to the United States Attorney's office in Boston as the anti-terrorism coordinator after September 11th and the first assistant U.S. attorney. So I've had county, state, and federal experience as a prosecutor.
And you certainly bring all these different approaches to now the Middlesex District Attorney's Office. What are the changes that you made once you took office?
Well, I was fortunate to have had county, state, and federal experience because I melded all of those different jurisdictional opportunities into ideas on how I wanted to administer the office of the Middlesex DA. Now, I had been there. I had grown up as a trial lawyer throughout the 90s in Middlesex. But I also took what I learned in the Attorney General's office and the U.S. Attorney's office to structuring the office a little differently and setting my priorities.
D.A. Leone, you were talking to me about the homicides and how it's changed since you were a student and a DA. But there are still very old homicides that your office is addressing. And specifically, I'm thinking about the 41-year-old case, that homicide. Would you talk to us about that and your initiatives to address this issue?
Sure. You know, one of the most gratifying things you can do as a prosecutor is to solve an unsolved case, especially a homicide. And what I always say about homicides is you're speaking for someone who literally has no voice. And when I came back to Middlesex County as the district attorney, I started an unsolved homicide program where every unsolved homicide we had going back 25 years, I assigned a team to it, a victim witness advocate, a prosecutor, and a state police trooper. And they gave me statuses and then updates on the statuses of each of those cases. And it's borne some fruit in particular matters, such as the case of John McCabe, who was a 16-year-old boy who was killed in Lowell in 1969. And we most recently have just solved that case.
And is that the 41-year-old homicide?
It is. John McCabe was 16 years old in 1969. His parents, and particularly his dad, have been adamant about keeping the case on the front burner with law enforcement, and we had some recent developments that allowed us to solve the case and charge the 3 people who were responsible for killing John.
That's staggering information and great work, D.A. Leone. So among the kind of work that you do in your office, you also have some youth initiative programs and nonprofit programs. Would you talk to us about the child of your eyes in that program? Like, I'm talking about the youth advocacy program that you have.
Sure. I look at the office as having a front end and a back end. Right? The back end is the cases that we prosecute, and we have thousands of cases in one of the largest counties in the country that we prosecute. The front end is intervention, prevention, education, and training. It's trying to prevent crime on the front end. And we have a particularized focus on young people and in the schools. We do that in a number of different ways, but primarily we have a program called Community-Based Justice, which is early morning meetings with the schools, trying to keep kids out of the system by meeting together with schools, police, probation. But we also have a creative nonprofit organization called Middlesex Partnerships for Youth. And It's a 501c3 nonprofit organization. All the superintendents of the 54 towns and cities that make up Middlesex belong to Middlesex Partnerships for Youth. And by belonging, they get educational in-service trainings in everything ranging from gang activity to bullying to cyberbullying, mental health issues, alcohol, drugs, and weaponry. And we go into the schools and we hold educational trainings for parents, students, and educators. And it's really a way of connecting with every community through its middle school and high school.
That's a wonderful program. And for your office, the prosecutors take part of it, and they're part of the education?
We do. The prosecutors run the early morning community-based justice meetings, and they also involve themselves in the in-service trainings. So on any given night, a prosecutor may go out to a middle school or a high school and talk to parents, educators, and or students about the issues that are most prevalent in their lives.
And among youth and all the people in college and high school that you go and to educate, you know, technology is very popular among them, the internet and Facebook and smartphones. So what, you were talking to me about the other initiatives that your office is taking to educate them, particularly in cyber crime. Tell us about that.
Well, every program in the office, whether it's homicide, youth violence, child abuse, domestic violence, has both an enforcement and prosecution component and an education and training component. One of the first things I did was start an entire cyber program when I came back as district attorney. And I merged our cyber enforcement unit with our child abuse unit. Because you can't keep kids safe in the year 2011 unless, one, you know how kids talk to each other, and that's through electronic communications.
That's right.
And two, you need to know what predators are using to prey upon our kids. And then the unfortunate reality is they're using the internet to create opportunities to prey on kids. So we have an entire cyber enforcement unit and program made up of a state trooper, a civilian forensic specialist, and an assistant district attorney who all have expertise in cyber issues. And we've got an entire programmatic approach to just creatively talking to kids about electronic communications.
And I'm sure that that has been rewarding in your county, Middlesex County. You've talked to me about how you see the homicide rate is different from when you were beginning as a district attorney there.
Yeah, you know, the homicide rate is one thing. That is usually a trend which stays pretty consistent throughout Middlesex County. It's a very eclectic, diverse, urban, suburban, rural area county. It's huge. It covers over a quarter of the population of Massachusetts. The homicide rate pretty much stays the same. But where we see a lot of different change is really on the prevention side. You know, like just an example of a creative opportunity is our PSA program, which is the Public Service Announcement Program. We pick an issue every year, and we have teenage kids create a 30-second PSA, and then they vote on them themselves across the county. And then the winner gets to spend time with me in promoting it and publicly communicating the PSA. This year, the issue is cyber safety.
Interesting. And you're very visible in your community. Your office also told me that you are going to schools and talk to schools about technology and also about drinking and driving, especially this summer. Talk to us about that.
Sure. Yeah, I stay involved myself, as do all of the assistant district attorneys. We have 120 of them. About half of them get engaged in the school program through the district courts. And I myself go to the meetings and I talk a lot to kids. In the spring season, particularly now, we do a lot of talking about impaired driving. And our most recent creative program is around texting and driving, because impaired driving can be a distraction, but texting is also a new phenomenon that kids are involved with, which unfortunately can cause a great distraction in adding to that statistic regarding fatalities, which is the #1 killer of our kids, our teenagers, is car crashes. It's
car crashes, and it could be drinking, texting, drinking. Dear Leone, what is what are the other cities or towns that are part of Middlesex County?
Yeah, we cover about 1.5 million people through our 54 towns and cities, and it's as urban as a place like Lowell that has over 100,000 people, or it's as rural as a place like Ayer that has about 1,500 people. and suburban anywhere in between. There are 11 different cities in Middlesex County. So we've got an urban population, suburban, and rural, and very eclectic, diverse populations, ranging from Caucasian to Cambodian to Latino to Asian to African American, and pockets all over the county that make up all those different cultural differences.
And the cities are Newton, and I think it's Cambridge, Newton, Stoughton.
Cambridge, Newton,
Cambridge,
Malden,
right.
Medford, Everett, Somerville,
Yes.
Lowell. Framingham is the largest town in the country, but it's like a city.
Yes.
So all of those different populations involve city-like issues, and then you have Woburn, Waltham, places like that also have city populations, and then places like Melrose that are a city but also have suburban, urban, and rural issues.
So that provides you enough challenges with all that.
Certainly does.
Today, our guest is District Attorney Gerry Leone, who is the District Attorney for Middlesex County. And he was just talking to us as to what Middlesex County is about and the areas it covers. My name is Lucy Rivera, and I am the host of this program. You are watching Discovering Justice. DA Leone, tell us about the victims now and the programs that your office has created for them, the domestic violence victims.
Victimization drives everything we do. I always tell people when we hire them, whether it's a victim witness advocate or an assistant district attorney, at the very base level, they need a level of empathy and sympathy that comes with the people that we serve and protect. And those are the people who are victimized and people who literally can have no voice in a system. And that's where our zealous advocacy comes to play on behalf of others, and particularly vulnerable victim populations. On the one end, our children, and on the other end, our elders.
That's right. And you've also created an initiative that not only for people, but also the Animal Abuse Prevention Initiative. And I'm very impressed as to all these initiatives, and I can see that you're really addressing. Would you talk to us about that?
Sure. Another thing that I did when I came back as an elected district attorney is to create a domestic violence unit. And that's because of the complicated, complex dynamic which is domestic violence. And we're constantly looking for creative ways to make a difference in domestic violence. And one of those areas that we've delved into is animal abuse. Because what we find is abusers will look for any way that they can to get leverage over a relationship and exercising power and control. And one of those things that they do is they will compromise an animal, because we all love our animals. And if that's a way for somebody to gain power and control over somebody they're abusing, they'll do that. So we've put a lot of efforts into identifying situations where an abuser is abusing someone by abusing their animals, their pets.
That's a great way of prevention, and it's probably not immediately apparent. And it's a great initiative, DA Leone. Tell us more about other initiatives in your office that are of interest to them.
Well, staying with domestic violence, we have what are called domestic violence roundtables, which are community-based approach to high-risk factors and indicators. And once we identify high-risk factors, we try to place abused people in a situation where they have trust and confidence in law enforcement and others who can help them. And we're trying to break down the barriers against disclosure every day. Because the fact of the matter is, in domestic violence, you have cultural, social, financial, economic barriers against abused victims disclosing the abuse that goes on in the four walls of a home. So we try to break that down, especially in the immigrant communities who might not otherwise have a level of confidence in law enforcement. So we're constantly working on disclosure and breaking down the barriers against disclosure.
And that seems like a very challenging effort, especially in the immigrant community, as you said. And people don't come forward and thinking they will be deported. And I sense that there could be room for abuse in that demographic.
Absolutely, and you have predators who are gaining power and control over people because they know that those who they're abusing are reluctant to come forward and disclose.
But I also know about another initiative that you have in your office for the elder, which is the elder abuse.
Right.
And do you want to tell us about this, expand on that a little bit?
Sure. Our most deserving population is our elders.
Yes.
And if we can't keep our young and our old safe, then that's a bad commentary on our communities. Just today, I was in Malden with a Kiwanis Club, and the vast majority of people there were over the age of 65. The gift that we've received is our people are living longer. Unfortunately, another trend is that abuse that's being visited upon our elders is also increasing. So we have to continue to keep in mind our most deserving population and provide them services and the knowledge about the services that are available to them, especially when there's an economic downturn where we have expanded familial situations and abuse and addiction are also thrown into the mix. Far too oftentimes our elders can be abused physically, mentally, financially, so we have to be there for them.
Okay. Gerry, Leone, we actually know you as a mostly district attorney, but you mentioned you were a ADA before. So did you have any involvement with the nanny case that was prosecuted?
Yeah, the Louise Woodward case,
Yes.
which was a teenaged au pair, was in the control and caretaking of a young boy named Matty Eapen, who was 8 months old when he was killed by Louise Woodward. I was asked by the district attorney at that time, Tom Riley, to take that case as the lead counsel on it. Myself and our present Attorney General, Martha Coakley, a longtime friend, teamed up on that case and prosecuted it, convicted Louise Woodward for second-degree murder for killing Matty Eapen. And the case was a challenge in a number of different ways. But the bottom line was, throughout all of that, it was a case of child abuse. And we never forgot Matty and Matty's parents, Sonny and Debbie, and at the time, his brother. And we prosecuted that case with them in mind at all times, and the jury did the right thing at the end of the day. They convicted her for the responsibility of killing Matty Eapen. And
that hinged on shaken baby syndrome. And your office has taken some steps to prevent those kind of crimes.
Right.
What's your comment on that shaken baby syndrome?
Well, here we are
efforts?
over a decade later, and we are still receiving far too many referrals of children who are being violently shaken, causing serious injuries and sometimes death. So what we've done is we've created a program with the various hospitals in Middlesex County to have nurses actually provide training to new parents before they're even allowed to leave the hospital about what violent shaking means to a child and the devastating injuries that such shaking can lead to. So we're engaged in a front-end education and prevention training program, and we continue to add on to that program in what's called the baby birthing county, because we have so many people and so many babies born in our county that we've formed a nice consortium and collaborative with the hospitals and an education and training program around shaken baby syndrome.
And what is shaken baby syndrome?
Essentially what shaken baby syndrome is a phenomenon where a caretaker will shake a young child so severely and so violently that the injuries to the eyes, to the brain, and other areas of the body can be catastrophic. And the fact of the matter is, it's a function of a young baby having a head which does not have enough support in the neck to control the violent shaking. And when that violent shaking happens, the head whip going back and forth causes the brain within the baby's head to shift back and forth at such a level that it causes devastating injuries to the optic nerve in the eye sheath and or the brain.
That's alarming. And so your office is now addressing education around this crime and how to prevent it. More of but if it's a crime, people are thinking about committing this, and how is your office helping around this issue?
Well, we start with the awareness around how to subside the issues around anxiety of having a new child. We fully appreciate, understand, and aware that being a parent's a tough job, and the anxieties that might come with having a young infant in the home. But what we try and do is educate people around the various options that you have when a child, because of their crying or other reasons, is causing anxiety. And the fact of the matter is, if you do nothing else, put the baby down and walk away until the anxiety is subsided. don't get near nor put your hands on the baby who's causing you some anxiety, because then your anxiety gets visited upon a child, something we should love and cherish, not violently shake, causing devastating injuries.
And that, to our viewers, it's a words of wisdom and to take note for all mothers-to-be and everybody in general, and that something so beautiful can actually cause anxiety. You are watching Discovering Justice, and my name is Lucy Rivera. I'm your host. We're continuing our conversation with District Attorney Gerry Leone, District Attorney of Middlesex County. DA Leone, it just seems like it's quite challenging to have the place you have and the role you are, that you so greatly and well have done in as DA of Middlesex County. Talk to us about those challenges. What is that like, and the things you have to worry about, all the initiatives you've implemented since 2007?
It's a challenging job, but they're challenges I embrace every day. I have a passion for the job, and I think that's that passion that drives me for us to get better every day. I constantly tell our staff, you either get better or you get worse, and this office is going to keep getting better, and I'm going to keep getting better as a district attorney, because we really, at the essence of what we do is to serve and protect others who need us. And that's what drives us, being able to speak for people with no voice, being able to stand up and be the support that they need. You know, I constantly refer during staff meetings to the song Lean on Me, and that's what we ask people to do. Lean on us so that we can be their support, so that we can be their champions. And the unfortunate reality is there are a lot of people out there who need just that. They need to be protected, they need to be served, and they need to be supported. And
in that vein, your office also needs resources to be able to accomplish all this. You need to lean on other agencies. Or what are your partnerships that you see that are natural allies and partnering to your office?
Well, the partnerships it's really a cornerstone of my career. Whether it's law enforcement, public safety, health and human service agencies, we really need to continue to partner. I always say failures of the health and human service sector are what end up in the criminal justice system. So we need to continue to drive partnerships. The unfortunate reality is my office, other DA's offices do not have enough money to do the job at the level we need to do. But I never refer to that as an excuse. We will continue to work hard, work smart, and partner with other people to bring the protection and services to people they deserve.
And you're addressing exactly the core of prevention of crime, which for me, it's the Middlesex Partnership Youth, addressing it at the level where people can still you can still change a child. And to accomplish that program, do you have any agencies working with you along?
We do. You know, our core mission is to do cases. We're a public law office, and we prosecute cases on behalf of people.
Yes.
And the fact of the matter is, if we don't get the resources we deserve, we can't do as much intervention and prevention as we'd like.
Right.
So usually that's what gets compromised in economic downturn times like this and when we don't have enough money. However, we never like to use that as an excuse nor a crutch. We continue to work hard on the front end so that we can hopefully subside the cases that we have on the back end. But it is resource-driven at some level, and the more resources we get, the better we can do the job on the back end of enforcing the laws, and the more involved we can be on the front end with schools and other partnering communities to better educate, train, prevent, and intervene in people's lives so that crimes don't occur.
Well, thank you for your time today, DA Leone, and I really appreciated your comments, and I learned a lot. We learned a lot about your office, and especially the fact that finally that 41-year-old case was resolved. It's amazing you can open a homicide, 41 years old, and successfully close it.
That was an incredible job by the Lowell Police Department and the Massachusetts State Police, along with the McCabe family, and just sticking with it, being persistent, and solving the crime.
Well, my name is Lucy Rivera, and we've been here with Gerry Leone, who is the DA of Middlesex County, and our program is Discovering Justice. But I invite all of you to please look at our webpage, www.discoveringjustice.net, and if we could put that on our screens so people can visit that. And you can contact me. You can send me an email through that. It's on your screens. And I look forward to hearing from you, and I look forward to your comments. And if you need to visit this segment or many of our other segments, I invite you to please look at our page. And District Attorney Leone, I really appreciate you being here. I know you're doing a lot of important work, so I'm very grateful that you could come.
Lucy, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you for coming today.
Thanks.
And thank you to all, and please see us again. Please come and stay tuned.